What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the 7th studio album by the Canadian rock and hard rock band 3 Days Grace. The album is called Outsider. This album was preceded by the lead single The Mountain, which, while an anthemic and kind of not too specific, kind of generic about what it's talking about, motivational anthem type track, I thought it was pretty good and actually really catchy and something that was super effective at getting stuck inside my head and wanting to make me listen to it again. Even if it's not the most creative thing ever, I think that their new lead vocalist, I say new, he's not really all that new whatsoever, he's been around for years now, but still kind of new in terms of 3 Days Grace fans, Matt Walst. I think he really stepped up on that track, and if I could say one thing about this album, Outsider, right off the bat, it's that Matt Walst does sound even better here than he did on Human, where that was kind of a complaint for me on their last record. Human was a record full of attempts and some misses, a few times that they connected, and they just had some strikeouts in there too, unfortunately. And on this new record, while I feel like Matt sounds better vocally, and while the instrumentals definitely grip in places, I think the lyrics are the biggest slip up here because a lot of these songs feel painfully cheesy and generic. Let me rewind for just a second here to tell you my history with the band 3 Days Grace, and before you go thinking, oh, this guy doesn't care, he's never been into them, well, they were actually the band that inspired me to start this channel. The first video on this channel, you can check to verify, it was a review of Life Starts Now by 3 Days Grace in 2009. That was crazy. It was an album that I wanted to talk about to people, but I didn't have friends that I could talk to about it, so I started a channel and uploaded an album review. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have anybody that was serving really as an inspiration to me. I just knew that I liked reading reviews in the paper, and I made one of my own. And that was for 3 Days Grace. I still love Life Starts Now. 1X is one of my favorite albums of all time. Say what you will about that, but that record still slams, at least in my mind. That album and the self-titled were two very influential albums for me in my early days, coming up in my teenage years, and I still connect to so many of the songs. Jumping forward back to current day me, I don't necessarily feel as strongly about 3 Days Grace, even though I have a lot of special memories connected to it, and their album that came out in 2015, Human, just kind of pushed me off a little bit, but then I kind of got back on board with the lead single from this new album, Outsider, called The Mountain. And here we are, at the album. How does it hold up? Outsider is an album that doesn't really find its footing or its stride until its second half. I think the first half kind of sees it awkwardly moving around a little bit. It's like a middle schooler at a dance, trying to not step on the shoes of their date, and then they end up accidentally doing it anyways, or else falling over, and some of these tracks do that for me, unfortunately. Like the opening moment, Right, Left, Wrong, I can't help but feeling like, I know there's gotta be some other people out there, if you listen to that chorus, it just feels uber cheesy to me, especially with the whoa in the background, just with the right, left, right, right, left, wrong. I mean, come on. That track, along with I Am an Outsider, were apparently the second and third singles, and I Am an Outsider is also another one of the weakest moments here lyrically. I mean, musically, I think it's okay. I think on an instrumental level, some of the chords that are played there, while a bit stale, are just fine, and I could say the same thing for Right, Left, Wrong. In fact, I like that one a whole lot. I think the musicality is what keeps me coming back to that track, even if I'm just kind of like, when that chorus comes on. I still like the song for what it is and its verses and the musicality of it, but on the track I Am an Outsider, I think this might be my least favorite on the entire LP. This is a track that just sees someone like very painfully and generically saying, you know, like, hey, I'm not like the rest of you, here I am, you know, I'm different, yeah. I'm not in with the in crowd. Does anyone say in crowd anymore? Is it 1980? Me Against You is another painstakingly dull track that I feel like I've heard like 1,000 times in like rock or indie or really any genre, honestly. Me Against You, like, oh, there's this clashing of heads, or there's this battle, and it's big, and you know, this is what it is. And I can't help but feeling like the fluff is there, especially in the pre-chorus that's leading up to it. You get this like bumbling bass, and then Walst comes in with the whole fuck that thing where he's like saying I'm not about this or whatever. and then Me Against You, the chorus. I mean, read the title, you can pretty much do the math on what the song's gonna be about. I promise there is stuff I like on this record, it's just unfortunately sometimes a bit hard to get to it because lyrics are definitely important to me. They're not of the utmost importance, especially if the song is super fun and you can still dig into other aspects of it, but some of these tracks just don't give you enough interesting stuff to pay attention to outside of the lyrical content. So where is my mind drawn? Straight to the lyrics. And if the bass, the drums, the guitars aren't standing out to me, or if they're just feeling like 3 Days Grace on cruise control, then I can't help but hone in on them. Anyways, like I said, I really love the lead single, The Mountain. A great track there for 3 Days Grace. Definitely will hit #1 on mainstream rock radio. I am sure of it. They have so many #1 hits, and that one just screams play me over and over and over again. Whether it be radio, Spotify, Apple Music, just in general. That track is a hit, and I know it. It's one of those songs that's already been working its way up the charts. They also have some other tracks, like I said, the second half of this record, in my opinion, being much better. The last 4 songs here are actually pretty damn strong, and in particular, I'm really drawn to the track The New Real. That is one that seems to talk about all of the fake stuff that we see around us. People posting on Instagram. I think Lil Bow Wow knows what I'm talking about. Acting like they're stunting and they're out here just making money and taking private jet rides, when in reality, they're probably in a bedroom somewhere just pulling from Google Images. I like how this track also shifts the lyrics. They add in new things. They're talking about the new house, the new vacation. Someone's driving a Maserati. Everybody is trying to be somebody. That's the message of this track, but in reality, they're questioning, is this the new real? Do we just have to accept the fact that everybody is constantly trying to one-up one another? And that's kind of awesome. I always praise stuff like that when I see it called out by bands actually daring to talk about these issues, because it's like, oh, maybe you'll offend some of your fans who are gonna get pissed that you're not excited about their 200 Instagram followers or their 500 likes on a post. But that's how people compare their worths these days and say, I'm better than you because I've got 3,000 followers and you only have 2,700, or I got a new car for my 16th birthday and you didn't. So the musicality of this track, I think the guitars are really great as well, and I think it's got a different vibe to it, a little bit of a bounce, and it is very catchy as a result of that. Villain I'm Not is definitely a classic 3 Days Grace jam. This one fits so nicely into their discography. Walt's voice sounds fantastic on the hook here, and like I said, lyrically, it's going to remind you of early 3 Days Grace stuff, and that shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. Right before that, we get another track that I'm kind of on the fence with, Strange Days. It has kind of an awkward opening to it. I understand that the band is kind of experimenting, trying some new sounds, just throwing in these kind of slow intros that are different before getting into the track. The Mountain did it and pulled it off, but Strange Days, a little bit more in the middle of the road, if you're asking me. Chasing Another First Time is another highlight vocally for me, and I also love those guitars and the way that they kind of build up to a very suspenseful height during the chorus of this track. The verses are very strong as well, and overall, I think that this is one of the more well-penned tunes on the entire LP. This album closes out on another track that I really do like. It's called The Abyss, and this one even gets some screams towards the end, and I do feel the power that is just kind of seething from a tune like this. The Abyss might start off a little bit slower, and maybe it'll sound a little bit too familiar at first, but give it a couple of plays, or at least give it the entire song. Don't just turn it off and think, I've heard this before, because this one, it definitely grips you and more as it goes on. One major complaint for me since Adam Gontier departed this band is the lack of emotional depth. Even on their mainstream hits like Never Too Late, Home, Animal I Have Become, those were songs that were very, very powerful and felt like they struck an angsty, of course, yes, but also emotional core, and I liked how they were able to fuse that together. And I felt like even on Human and this new record, even though there were attempts to do so like Fallen Angel or Human Race, I felt like it fell short at trying to connect on that level. That's why I have to throw some praise to a track that is kind of an outsider on this very album, Outsider. It's called Nothing to Lose But You. And I love the way that this one starts off with kind of a slower pacing to it, some acoustic guitars, and I do think Walst really nails it vocally here. The whole vibe of this track is reminiscent of some of their earlier stuff in a way, but it also sees them taking on some new territory, and I'm more than okay with this. This album needs more tracks like this. Overall, Outsider was a letdown for me. After The Mountain, I was expecting to reach some new heights, but I don't think that we got there, and as a result, I feel like we kind of stayed very similar to the last record, Human, which was average, and average isn't the worst thing ever, but at the same time, I was hoping that there would be new ground trotted upon here, and unfortunately that didn't really happen all that often. For me personally, I'm gonna give this new record, Outsider, a 3 out of 5. Don't forget, it's all just my opinion, so I would love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and please drop a like on the video while you're here, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you would like to support what I do here on this channel and beyond ARTV as well on Patreon, then do so by clicking the top link down below, or else this annotation in the corner of your screen. If you would like to see another 3 Days Grace video, click right over here, or another recent review I uploaded right over here. Socials in the description, and I'll see you soon right here on ARTV.